Hello, people.
We're back!
Yeah, we haven't done a Theory Thursday in a while, but we are back. And we have a very special one, Matt Pat pose.
I love the Matt Pat pose.
Yeah, we have a very special one that we're pretty proud of, actually. That we
You know, it's the new DCI theory.
Yeah, hopefully it gets as much views.
Oh god, please. We need it.
We need it, please. This channel's dying. Also, if you're wondering about Into the Pit, we're probably not gonna bring that back since, I don't know, it just didn't.
We're probably not gonna do gameplay videos anymore.
They just don't do well.
No. Also, I just prefer reactions and theories in general.
Yeah, they're a little more fun. Anyways, so this theory is about, we actually, you were the one who brought it up to me.
Yeah. I was watching Dogco and Matt Pat's
FNAF Unsolved.
FNAF Unsolved Midnight Motorist, and they brought up a very good point. They brought up the idea that Golden Freddy could be buried, could be the thing that's buried in Midnight Motorist. I don't agree with this.
Yeah, that's actually not what the theory's about.
No, not at all. But they did bring up some points that I think heavily help a different theory that I haven't seen anybody talk about. Have you seen anybody?
No, that we were talking about, like, I don't think I saw anybody bring this up. I mean, if they have, I mean, people could tell us maybe, but...
Yeah, so there is going to be a little bit of evidence that they use for that, but we think personally better fits our theory.
Yeah, so essentially our theory is that William Afton actually threw the Golden Freddy suit with Cassidy inside of it into a lake. The
Red Lake. I feel like that's a thing that people just haven't understood at all. Like, lake imagery in FNAF has been something incredibly...
It's a lot more prominent than you might realize. It's weird.
Yeah, like, if you don't look for it, it's kind of like...
And it's connected to Golden Freddy a lot. So we're going to be, like, presenting that evidence, of course. We're going to be presenting probably rebuttals like we did with previous theories a while ago. But yeah, we also want to bring up the idea of how Golden Freddy, like, this will connect to how Golden Freddy is actually an apparition, like a ghostly figure instead of an actual physical suit when we see him in the game.
It gives more reasoning for him acting so different from all of the other
because that's
people. And also, it gives a reason for Cassidy being the one you shouldn't have killed, because the way that he disposed of the body was so different.
And, like, it's just been, like, for so long, like, there's just been debate on if Golden Freddy's actually a physical suit or just a ghostly apparition, and this theory kind of just gives a lot of evidence towards, like, the actual truth of him being an apparition. Possibly putting to rest a debate, but who knows. Let's get into it.
So, first piece of evidence. FNAF AR skins. I know, nobody ever uses those for evidence, but we will, because it somehow actually supports a theory. Golden Freddy has two skins. The first and most obvious thing that supports us, Great Escape Golden Freddy. It's literally just a skin of Golden Freddy getting dumped in a lake and having to get out, but he doesn't. It's literally just a drowned Golden Freddy. It doesn't get more obvious than that, and if you say that it's just a coincidence that it's Golden Freddy, he has two skins. Literally, both of them are water related. His only other skin, Infested Golden Freddy, is from an update called Slimy Sewers, another water related one. And it's just like, it's too much of a coincidence, and both of the skins look like they have kind of water damage. Infested to a little bit of a lesser degree, but it just kind of looks more melted, fallen apart. It still looks bad in like a similar water damage kind of way. The only two Golden Freddy skins feel like have something to do with like him in water, when that's never really something that we've ever seen aside from this theory. I feel like it just is too much of a coincidence to ignore.
Okay, our second point is actually have to do with Dreadbear, yes. Another instance of something that's, like, not a lot of people would bring up, especially for a theory. So you might just think, oh, Dreadbear, he's kind of just a sort of one-off character that was used for, you know, the fun Halloween DLC for Help Wanted 1. But, if you can remember, Dreadbear is actually seen walking out of the lake in the hub world for the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. And it feels kind of random. It feels like, oh, maybe it's just like a little, like, fun little event type thing. But it just feels very out of place, and it's like, what is the purpose for this? And that could be a representation of Cassidy, who we are believing is actually an apparition, or Golden Freddy itself is an actual apparition rather than an actual physical suit in the game, and that could be a representation of it rising out of the lake as a spirit. And what about Dreadbear makes you think of the undead is the fact that he literally is meant to represent Frankenstein, which is a zombie-like character. So it connects with ghost, zombie. It has that undead kind of aesthetic to it that almost makes it seem like it's like something rising from the dead, and where does it rise from? A literal lake.
Let's also mention that that lake happens to be red. That's important for a later point.
True, we'll get to that at the very end. Just keep watching the video, okay? We need the views!
Okay, our third point. The Tales from the Pizzaplex story, drowning. It's not really something that we're really super certain about for this, but a lot of people tend to think that drowning is like about Cassidy. So I feel like it's important that we bring up that this would be more of a sort of thing to show Cassidy being in water. Not necessarily that he drowned her, but that he dumped her body in water. And I feel like that is something that kind of just makes sense for that people never really decide to bring up about it. So it works.
Alright, so this is the big point that we want to get to that kind of cultivates this sort of theory, is Old Man Consequences. Of course, Old Man Consequences, you know, connected to the lake, the Red Lake, and in UCN, obviously many people know of the cutscene where Golden Freddy, or, you know, the representation of Golden Freddy is the 8-bit sprite, goes into the lake, and obviously Old Man Consequences talks about, you know, letting your soul rest, or can't remember the exact quote, but it's connected to Cassidy specifically, who is, of course, you know, most likely the spirit in UCN that is, of course, torturing Billy Mountain in his personal hell. Literally, Golden Freddy, the sprite of Golden Freddy, goes into the lake, and that could be a representation of how Golden Freddy originally, you know, exited the lake, or Cassidy's spirit taking the form of this ghostly apparition as the Golden Freddy suit left the lake. But now that she's letting her soul rest, she's going back into the lake, letting the body just die out, letting everything die out, staying at the bottom of the lake, and not taking herself out of it anymore. And it also, like, connects to Dreadbear because of how Dreadbear has that similar red lake that he comes out of. Also, in Five Nights at Freddy's, everybody's favorite FNAF game, there's actually a certain area where you can actually see a red lake. Hey guys, this is actually editing Slimbo here. I want to clarify that there actually isn't a red lake in the Midnight Motorist map for Five Nights at Freddy's. It's actually just a normal lake, but there is this sort of reddish imagery that shows up throughout the map during the night shift mode, and that could maybe hint towards something relating to the Red Lake or Old Man Consequences, but the lake itself could, you know, sort of further evidence, as you'll see. But yeah, just wanted to make that clarification. Don't know why me and Downcat basically gaslit ourselves into believing that there was a Red Lake, but it's whatever. Anyways, back to the video. In the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted 1, we obviously see what we presume to be the Afton family house in the background, and the lake that Dreadbear comes out of is in that hub, so it's pretty close to where the Afton family house is. And since Midnight Motorist, the minigame itself, is supposed to be a representation of the Afton family house, and that Five Nights at Freddy's has this lake within its map, that could mean that they're meant to be the same lakes. I don't think there's a spot where you can see the Afton family house in the Five Nights at Freddy's map, but still, that could just be like kind of a connection that you can make.
Okay, we've made it past the evidence point, but now we're on to rebuttals, which is also kind of just more evidence for us. Firstly, some people might say, okay, why would he even bother dumping Golden Freddy? What we say to that is that Golden Freddy was a performance suit that people be using. You can't just leave a dead body in there and have nobody discover it. And some people might double respond to that and say, Golden Freddy was from Fredbear's. Why the hell would you use him in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza after, like, it's not Fredbear's anymore? And what we have for that is in the movie, you actually see a picture of Spring Bonnie with Afton wearing the Spring Bonnie suit in the FNAF 1 pizzeria that you see in the entire movie. implying that even though it wasn't that location anymore, the suits were still being used. I mean, you wouldn't just get rid of the suits when you could still use them for a ton more stuff. Yeah, he would kind of have to dump it, because somebody else was gonna have to use the suit, or somebody, they would have looked. And so he had to just try to dump it somewhere. Sure, it'd be kind of suspicious, but what can you do about it?
Alright, next rebuttal. So some of you might be like, how could Golden Freddy really have been drowned into a lake when we actually see him in-game, specifically in FNAF 1 and 2? Well, as we've mentioned before, we are connected to Golden Freddy being an apparition, and how Golden Freddy being an apparition would most likely be true is just honestly, essentially just basically looking at how Golden Freddy functions within the games that he's in. FNAF 1, he just appears in your office no matter what. There's also the fact that you don't ever see him on cameras except for a poster. Now, a poster changing is such a ghostly thing to do. It doesn't make sense how a physical suit could really cause that. It makes sense for a spirit to conjure that sort of event to happen. Now, with FNAF 2, there's even more evidence for how an apparition is what Golden Freddy truly is when we see him physically in these games. And Golden Freddy literally can detach itself from the suit and become a giant head. We see a giant head within the hallway of FNAF 2, but also Golden Freddy's jump scare is a giant head coming after you. If that doesn't seem ghostly to you, then I don't know what does, because there is no other animatronic that has these kind of capabilities. Some people might say that somehow Golden Freddy is more powerful, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would a specific animatronic be way more powerful than the rest of them? The only one that you could argue for that is possibly the puppet, because Charlie was the first victim out of all of William's victims, so, you know, that sort of lingering power of vengeance could have conjured itself more within Charlie's soul. But Golden Freddy, as, you know, far as what is given to us, is most likely the last of the MCI. So it wouldn't really make sense for how Cassie would have such power. Also, bringing back to the FNAF movie like we did with the last rebuttal, if you've seen the FNAF movie, Golden Freddy is extremely different in the way that he functions, like, from the other animatronics, even more so than the games. He can literally leave the pizzeria, somehow get into a house, and essentially that just seems like a very ghostly sort of function. And there's literally the fact that Abby just goes to the pizzeria and Golden Freddy just completely disappears. The fact that Golden Freddy has such this sort of different way of working than the other animatronics, it doesn't make sense for him to be an actual suit. He would have to be some kind of otherworldly, or not otherworldly presence, but some sort of supernatural presence that isn't just a suit that's possessed. Also, a valid point to bring up is that Cassidy was most likely spring-locked inside of Golden Freddy. Now, why do we think this? Well, essentially, there are actually many instances of spring locks being used as sort of a tactic for people to be trapped within in terms of, like, being victims. Firstly, we have Carlton from the Silver Eyes. He was kidnapped by William/Dave Miller and thrown inside of a springlock suit as a method of torture. Now, he survived, of course, but we also have the instance of Abby, who was, in the FNAF movie, who was almost put inside of a springlock suit by Chica in, like, the third act of the film. So it's obviously that that's some kind of method that people use, is like, well, specifically Afton, is trying to put people into springlock suits. And of course, in the FNAF movie, the animatronics there's this subplot of the animatronics being controlled by Afton himself and having influence over them. We believe that Cassidy most likely tried to hide inside of Golden Freddy because we have these implications within Into the Pit, specifically the Into the Pit game, where Oswald, of course, tries to hide from Pit Bonnie by using the Golden Freddy suit. And there could have been some kind of situation where Cassidy maybe saw, like, Susie or one of the kids get taken and murdered by William, and William noticed this, and then she tried to hide in Golden Freddy, and then William was just like, you know what, I'm gonna set up the spring locks in this because that would just be an easy kill for him to get.
Okay, final rebuttal. Some people who have watched us before will say, hey, doesn't this kind of, like, directly go against puppet stuff? Which is a point that we used for our DCI theory. And we say, no. This is because in Give Gifts, Give Life, you don't ever actually see the puppet stuff the fifth kid. You see the kid completely unstuffed in the middle of the frame for, like, one frame. And you never see him stuffed. There is no proof of the puppet stuffing specifically that one. Just that the puppet knows that there is a fifth victim. Meaning that of all the characters to have been stuffed by William, Golden Freddy is the one that makes the most sense. Even for people that don't, like, believe puppet stuff, it just makes sense that William would stuff, Golden Freddy.
Alright guys, so, you know, that's basically our solid evidence, solid proof for what we believe actually happened to Golden Freddy and Cassidy. Essentially, restating the theory, William basically spring-locked Cassidy within the suit, whether she was like hiding in it or he like put her in it. Then he had to get rid of that body because, you know, it was a suit that was being used for performances at the time still.
And the best way to do this would be him just dumping it on his way home. Because as we see with Midnight Motorist and Curse of Dreadbear and 5 Laps at Freddy's, the Red Lake is pretty damn close to his house.
Like, it seems very hinted at. I mean, we have that with Curse of Dreadbear where the Red Lake is literally like right near the Adler family house. And Midnight Motorist is obviously supposed to have the Adler family house. And then we see that like in the Midnight Motorist map in 5 Laps at Freddy's. So it would make sense for it to be near his house. That would be like an easy way to dump something.
Yeah, it would just be the easiest way for him to dispose of it. Genuinely less work for him than burying it.
In general, there's just like this obvious sort of referencing and imagery with lakes, you know, specifically obviously the Red Lake with Old Man Consequences, but also like water connected to Gold Freddy with the AR skins. There's just this, it's just such a weird connection that it seems like there hasn't been really an explanation for why it's there. And this is possibly a good explanation for what it is supposed to represent. It's
really just a bunch of loose ends that we can pretty easily tie together into something that makes sense. Golden Freddy has been a hot topic for the FNAF community for the last few months. Our last Golden Freddy video was kind of bad.
Yeah.
So we figured we kind of owed it to people to make an actually good Golden Freddy video.
That video was, we kind of rushed out that video. We didn't really think thoroughly through that. We kind of just came up with like right on the spot kind of with things that we came up with. But, you know, this one, we've planned out the evidence way more. We hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. Of course, check out our other channel, the Ouijaland Pictures. And yeah, see you guys later. Bye-bye.